the theme, though, you need to remember is, what do you have? Or, what you got, terrible English, but memorable, what you got, give it. You got it? I'll make sure this side of the room got it. Question, what you got, give it. Give it. God asked that question all through the Bible. Twice in this, these two women, Elisha asked that question essentially. And here's the cool thing. What they had, they gave. What they had, they gave. What do you got? Are you giving it? What's going on here? Your servant has nothing at all. Often we go negative when people ask us to do something. Oh, I don't have the youth, I don't have the talent, I don't have the time, I don't have the, we go negative. And she did. Your servant has nothing here at all, she said, except a little oil. Elisha said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for a few, then go inside and shut the door. Minor rabbit trail, but key in Scripture is, why is 3 times in this passage does it tell him to shut the door? I can't definitively answer that other than I know God wants us to learn how to walk by faith, not just by sight. To see with spiritual eyes, not just physical eyes. And if you shut the door, you can't see with physical eyes anymore, right? People can't look at you or look what's happening in your life if the door is shut. The other thing is you can't compare. Oh, look what they're doing. Oh, the door just went shut. I can't compare myself with them. And that's a good thing. I'll come back to that whole comparison issue. Go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons, and pour oil into all the jars. As each is filled, pour it on one side. She left him afterward, shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. Notice that. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. Notice she asked big of her neighbors, okay? And God came through. He kept filling them until they ran out of jars. But he replied, there's not a jar left, and the oil stopped flowing. That's a key thought there. She went and told the man of God, and he said, go and sell the oil, pay your debts, and your sons can live on what is left. How many of you know we have a God who does exceedingly abundantly beyond all we ask or imagine? Ephesians 3:20, in case you're wondering where I got that. Now unto him who's able to do exceedingly abundant beyond all you ask or imagine, according to his power at work within you. We serve an exceeding abundant God. There was plenty of oil that she could actually, as Elisha said, you can live on it the rest of your life. One day, Elisha went to Shunem, and a well-to-do woman was there who urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. She said to her husband, I know this man who often comes our way as a holy man of God. And look at this. What did she have? She didn't have a whole lot by worldly standards, did she? But what she had, she gave. And it was what he needed because it was about the halfway point on his itinerant ministry. And he could rest there, he could read there, he could study there, he could eat there. Who urged just whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. I know there's a holy man. Let's make a small room on the roof, put him in a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp for him, and he can stay there whenever he comes to us. What she had, she gave. One day when Elisha came, he went up to his room and lay down there. And he said to his servants, Gehazi, call the Shunammite. And he called her, and she stood before him. Elisha said to him, tell her you have gone to all this trouble for us. Now, what can I do for you? There it is again. The number one question of Jesus. What do you want me to do for you? Can we speak to you on your behalf of the king or commander of the army? She replied, I have a home among my own people. What can be done for her? Elisha asked. Gehazi said, well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And in that culture, that was not a good thing because it didn't spell the likelihood of having a family. What she had, she gave, however. Let's zoom in on every word in that question. What do you have? What? Be specific. So often when we offer ourselves to the Lord, we are so vague, or to people. We go up to somebody Now, I know you've never said this. If you need anything, give me a call. No. No. They're not going to call. How about this? Somebody's lost a parent. They're in the hospital. Somebody's had a baby. Hey, I make great meals that you can tuck away in your freezer and you anytime. Is there anything your family doesn't like? I'm bringing it on Tuesday. What do you have? Be specific. Don't go up to the coordinator of nursery. Are they here? Anyway, don't go up to the coordinator of nursery and say, hey, if you need me, give me a call. Yeah, just try to get anything but my voicemail. That's what that means in parentheses, right? No, I can work every third Sunday. Put me down. What do you have? Be specific. Do, the second word in that question, what's current? Not what did you used to have, not what did you do back in your prime that you're no longer willing to do because you say you're old. You know, if I hear another retiree say, and I'm a retiree and I'm in that age category, oh, let the younger people do it, I think I'm going to scream. No, what do you have right now? Do you have? What are you offering now? What can you do now? You can call people and ask them to serve in the nursery. You can do that, regardless of your physical status. What do you have? Not what did you used to have, not what do you desire to have, not what has age taken away from you or illness or time. What do you have that you're willing to give right now? And not any of this, oh, when the kids are grown, or when I finally retire, I'll offer the Lord this, or when I finally can get ahead of my bills, I'll start tithing. No. Because you know what? There's something about those kind of statements that day never comes. We say, oh, I'll serve the Lord when my kids are out of the house and I'm no longer taxing them here and there. No, you won't. Not if you're not doing it now. Not if you're not cutting some time loose. It may not be as much as you'll eventually be able to give, but what do you have that you can offer right now? Because when that day comes, like, when I finally get my degree, then I'm going to serve the Lord. No, you can do something now. Don't wait to get your degree because you'll just keep kicking the can down the road if you're making those statements now. What do you have? What do you have? Not somebody else. Stop looking around, comparing yourself. You know, and I know that that's a temptation for us all because you know who did it? The Apostle Peter. Remember at the end of the Gospel of John how Jesus was saying what's going to happen with Peter, and Peter looks over and points to John. And he says, "What about him?" How many of you know that's what social media is all about? That's why it's such a blight on our culture, is because it breeds comparison. And because you never have as nice a meal as that person's showing you. You never have as many friends as they're showing you in their pictures. You're never having as good a party as they're showing you. And that's why it's such a curse for young people, because it's all about comparison, and you're always going to come up short. Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. And it is. No less than the great apostle Paul said this. This is from 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Hold your place there at 2 Kings 4. And look over at 2 Corinthians chapter 10, because we're going to look at also a verse in chapter 8, a couple verses there. But chapter 10, look at verse 12. Paul says we do not dare classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves. They are not wise. And there's a bunch of scriptures that say the same thing. Comparison. And you know what? Ministers are not above this. There's a pastor who shall remain nameless up in north part of this state who he preaches in a brogue, a Scottish brogue. And I know people love to hear the Scottish brogue. And I know more than a few people probably go to this church because they love to hear his brogue, because I hear him say that because they listen to him on the radio. And so I keep teasing I kept teasing my congregation, someday I'm going to preach in a brogue, and it will be delightful, and people will flock into this place. And Joyce said, if you do, I'm walking straight out the door, and you won't see me again until you're done with that sermon. Now you know why she said that, okay? Anyhow, but I'm convinced that guy plays tapes of himself. He's been here 50 years in America, and he still has a thicker brogue than he did when he came over. He reviews tapes of himself every night so he doesn't lose his brogue because he knows his audience loves it. Anyhow, you compare yourself with that guy, and, people would leave the church, and they'd say, well, that was a great sermon, Pastor, but I heard Swindoll do that in a different way. I go, I wish he'd go off the air. Anyway, but it's a temptation for pastors too, that whole comparison thing. What do you have? We're coming right back to the original question. Currently, not someday, currently, right now. Let's go on. This woman, the second woman here, she didn't even ask for a son. She wanted one. All Jewish women did, because they were your future, they were your hope, they were your social security, they were your love of your life. They took care of you in your old age, and she didn't have one. My grandmother raised 6 kids without a husband. Her husband died at a very young age. And so my father was orphaned at age 8. Not orphaned, but just had a mom. Back in the day where there were no social safety nets. But guess what? The community, the church, and the family did a way better job than Social Security. But sons were Social Security. Children were Social Security, and she did not have one. She didn't ask for one, but God gave her one because God knew she wanted one, and so did Elisha, and then he died. Look at verse 18. Verse 18. Back to 2 Kings chapter 4. Okay. Find it here. As a child grew up, one day he went out with his father who was reaping. My head, he said to his father. His father told a servant, carry him to his mother, and after the servant had lifted him up and carried him, his mother sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God, then shut the door and went out. She called her husband and said, please send me one of the servants and a donkey so I can go to the man of God. So when she got to the man of God, let's pick up the story at verse 27. She went, remember though, she asked large here, because she knew that this prophet who was instrumental in her delivering a son in her old age could also raise him up from sickness or even death. She knew how to ask large, but she is going desperate. She's going desperate to the man of God. Here's the thing. In our culture, the word desperate has a lot of baggage, right? It's not a good word. It's not a word that almost any of us associate with anything good. But you know what? People that were desperate and desperate for God in the Bible, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And she went up and she fell at the feet of Elisha. That's your bulletin cover this morning, in case you didn't notice that. A woman falling at the feet of Jesus, and Elisha is a type of Christ. Pick the story up there at verse 27. Everything, when she reached the man of God mountain, she took hold of his feet. I can probably show you 12 incidences in the New Testament where people are falling at the feet of Jesus. Most of the time, it's a good thing. They're desperate for him. I think of the Gadarene demoniac who's ripping the chains out of the walls. Nobody could constrain him. He was terrorizing that population until he fell at the feet of Jesus. Maybe you're here this morning and you're desperate. You know what? I'm going to tell you a solution that will exceed any other solution you found. You got to fall at the feet of Jesus in utter desperation. That's what the people did in the Bible, and good things happened. This woman fell at the feet of Elisha, a type of Christ. And look what happened. She took hold of his feet and Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of God said, "Leave her alone. She's in bitter distress. But the Lord has hidden it from me. He has not told me why." "Did I ask you for a son, my lord?" she said. "Did I tell you, don't raise my hopes?" Elisha said to Gehazi, "Tuck your cloak in your belt, take my staff in your hand and run. If you meet anyone, don't greet him. If anyone greets you, don't answer him. Lay my staff on the boy's face." But the child's mother said, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as surely as you live, I will not leave you." She got up and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead, laid the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or response. So Gehazi went back to meet Elisha and told him, "The boy has not awakened." When Elisha reached the house, there was the boy lying dead on the couch. He went in and shut the door on the two of them and prayed to the Lord. Then he got on the bed and lay upon the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands. He stretched himself out upon him. The boy's body grew warm. Elisha turned away, walked back and forth in the room. Then he got on the bed and stretched out upon him once more. The boy sneezed 7 times, opening his eyes. Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite woman." And he did. When she came, "Take your son." She came in and again fell at his feet and bowed to the ground. Then she took her son and went out. These women knew how to ask large, didn't they? Do you? Do you know how to ask large? In the scriptures, people are often asking large, and God is coming through exceedingly abundantly beyond. How many places in the scripture can you think of God's exceeding abundant provision? Look at the life of Job. He had a lot, then he lost it all. But what, did you read the last chapter? God restored more than he had at the beginning. The disciples, when they were told by Jesus to feed the 4,000 and then feed the 5,000, what did they say? They immediately went negative. Do you remember some of their going negative was? Just like we do, just like they did. It's a remote place. We have nothing. The crowds are too big, and it's so late. All the shops will be closed. All the stores will be closed. They went negative. Jesus said, "What do you have? What do you have? Give it." The little boy gave it, and look what happened. What I love about that story is there were 12 baskets full left over because we have a God who is exceedingly abundant beyond, right? Leftovers. I love leftovers. I was raised on leftovers. I'd tease my mother, "Mom, we have leftovers every night." Where was the original meal? Leftovers, because there's exceeding. The Syrophoenician woman, Mark chapter 7, whose little girl is sick, and she comes to Jesus, and he says, "No, sorry, I came to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." She said, "Even the little dogs eat the crumbs that fall off the children's table." Meaning, one of the meanings there is, even the crumbs, even the leftovers are enough, are more than enough. There's enough for the Jew and the Gentile in God's economy. Exceeding abundant beyond. Do you believe we have a God who's able to do exceeding abundant beyond? What do you need to ask large for this morning? Is there anything that you need, first of all, to be desperate for? And then fall at the feet of Jesus. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That meant totally empty. That word poor means totally empty. Nothing. You bring nothing to the table. Just like grace, isn't it? Just like our salvation. We bring nothing to the table except ourselves and present ourselves. You know, it's so easy to go negative. They all did it, or a lot of them did it in the Bible. You know, Saul hid in the baggage when he was asked. Moses said, "I can't speak," and God said, "Hey, who made your mouth? And I'll give you Aaron." Jeremiah said, "I'm only a child." Elijah in chapter 49 says, "My work has all been worthless." Gideon said, "I don't have enough men." God says, "No, you got too many. I'm going to pare it down to 300, and your 300 is going to be beat 30,000 of the Midianites. Yeah, I don't have enough. No, yeah, you do. Over and over again, Elijah, said, I'm the last of the prophets, and the other prophet had to remind him, nope, I've hid hundreds in caves here for you. The disciples, just again, they asked large. They knew how to ask large. The lesson this morning, what you got, give it. What you got, give it. One more text. Let's look at 2 Corinthians, back to 2 Corinthians. Look at chapter 8. The Macedonian church, or the Corinthian church here, is impoverished. But you know what? What they had, they gave. Look at this chapter. And now, brothers, we want to know the grace that God had given to the Macedonian churches. Out of this most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty, they didn't have much, but look, what they had, they gave. Their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity, for I testify that they gave as much as they were able and even beyond their ability. Why? Because God gives us beyond what we expect or imagine. They gave beyond their ability, entirely on their own. This is 2 Corinthians 8, verses 1 to 4. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord. First to the Lord. See, so I should have started the message with this, but I'll circle back here. That's the key. Have you given yourself first to the Lord? There's a little picture of a shepherd and a lamb that I think they have to project there. Do you think that lamb has given himself to the shepherd there? Drawing close to the shepherd? Yeah, that's what the Macedonian churches had done. They'd given themselves first to Jesus. And then out of their need and then their abundance, they were able to bless others back. They were able to bless others. And that's, I think of that picture in the Old Testament too. Remember how in Exodus 34 and 35, they had invited people to bring gifts into the tabernacle and they were going to make it better? Finally, they had to tell the people to stop. We've got too much. Anybody on the finance committee here ever had to tell the congregation to stop giving? We got too much. Just stop. Just stop. No, we got plenty. We don't need any more from you for a while. That's a great problem, isn't it? But they had asked large, and they were able to give large because they first gave themselves to the Lord. Entirely on them, and they urgently pleaded us for the privilege of sharing the service to the saints. They were able to give, verse 3 says, beyond their ability. And they did not do as we expected. They gave themselves first to the Lord, verse 5, and then to us in keeping with God's will. Look also there at verse 12. For if the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable, look at this, according to what one has, not according to what one does not have. So often it's easy for us to just focus on what we used to have, what we want to have but don't have now, what we hope to have in the future but don't have yet, what we once had has been taken away by age, by illness, by circumstances, by a bad boss, whatever. No, he's not asking for what we don't have or what we had and lost. He's asking for what we have. What are you going to say if I ever come back here? What you got? Give it. He's asking Carl Road Church that. What do you have? And that report has wonderful things about what you currently have, what you are currently giving. That's a good thing. Keep doing it. He wants you to keep asking that. What do we have? What resources do we have? What people do we have? What location do we have? All that. He wants us to give that. Use that for His glory and for your good. What you got, give it. But first, make sure you've given yourself to the Lord like that. Like that.